And here we are once again on a Friday, and we are going to gut the news. We have got our sharp knives out to parade, Pat. Sharp knives in hand.
That's
I'm going to
absolutely.
gut the news and tell people what the real story is. You're all agog about the local elections in the neighbouring island, Pat. Would that be true?
Yeah, no, someone, Jude. I used to think maybe they made some difference here, but I'm not sure. No, but anyway, last night the Labour. No, I wrote it down. Labour is now the largest party in local government. But no, Jude, as far as I know, some of these counts won't finish until maybe Sunday, Monday,
several days,
because if there's so many to count, and it's a PR system as far as I remember. But anyway, it says Labour is now the largest party. Since in local government since 2002. They have gained what is it, as we speak, something like 632 seats. Lib Dems have gained 417, and the Tories have lost almost 1,000. They're down 960, and obviously, it's self-evident if that trend continued towards a general election, Labour would get into government almost certainly as the largest single party, and they wouldn't probably even need a coalition partner. No, Jude, what it all means, like speaking personally right now, I see zero difference between Keir Starmer's Labour and Rishi Sunak's Tories.
Very little.
Like the difference, maybe you could claim maybe there might have been some difference between Sunak and Boris Johnson, because Boris Johnson was just a free for all, corrupt as be damned. Sunak seems to have at least tried to bring back some reasonable values. But dude, other than that, I can't see a big difference.
He's not knocking over any tables. The one note I would have of optimism would be the fact that Tony Benn's son, I've forgotten what his name is now, but Hilary Benn, he's going to be the Secretary of State. He is a shadow Secretary of State. So I think if he comes here, he'll at least have some clue. It won't be like that one from the Tory party that was really surprised that the Unionists voted for the Union.
She didn't know Catholics didn't vote for the Union. What was her name? Bradley? Was it Bradley?
Karen Bradley.
It was unbelievable that they appointed. It's like saying she didn't know there were black people in Africa. It was unbelievable.
Anyway, I just see it as a question of time. I mean, it confirms all the trends. There isn't a chance that the Tories will win the next general election. Of course, Labour get in, but Labour have been so under Starmer have been so cautious and cutting off any areas of danger of any kind and dumping any candidate who might suggest any word like socialism and that kind of thing. I think he's overdone it, but he'll still win by a handsome majority. Anyway, I don't care what they do. What I want them to do is...
That's the thing. I'm a bigger follower of social media than you are. And those people of whom I am one, so let me get my card. The type of Jeremy Corbyn. I believe, I'm a sort of a 1960s sort of liberal, that I believe in fair play, equality, and the right of people to do as they see fit within the bounds of law. The Tory, the Labour Party, they are basically capitalists. They're all for business. I don't see any socialism. I don't see any policies that sort of say, hey, they're not going to undo some of the Labour or the Tories laws in regards to workers' rights and stuff like that. In fact, they seem as right wing on many things as the Tories. So what's the difference?
It'll be interesting to see if they'll follow through on what most British people want, most English people anyway, and that is nationalise the railways. The railways in Britain are in awful shape altogether. Trains are continually late. And I've talked to the most conservative of people from London, and they've all said, oh, God, stop this. The pain of these, I don't know what these private companies are called. Nationalise them as quickly as possible and make them run.
And by the way, Jude, the water is the same. There is massive profit taking from the water and the infrastructure. There are leaks and there's interruptions to service apparently now occurring fairly regularly. But the guys who have their shareholders holdings are making fortunes. So Thatcher thought she would have privatized urine if she could have got the chance. But anyway, it doesn't matter. What seems to be happening now is They're going to have a look at all these big services like water and transport.
It should be obvious to everybody, I think. Well, maybe I'm just looking at it from my point of view. But yeah, you should nationalize essential services. Essential
Yeah,
services like transport, essential services
yeah,
like water. There are other
yeah.
things that I can never understand. If you nationalize something, you don't have to make a profit. You just have to make it run efficiently
Uh,
and come out
yeah,
without costs. You
yeah.
charge and then
But
you
you, but
spend.
you're, if you're the chief executive of the railways, say a particular, say Southern Railways, I don't even
Yeah,
know if such
yeah.
a thing exists, and
Avanti.
whatever it is, and if you keep your job, if you give your shareholders a good sort of dividend at the end of each year, and they're saying, "Oh, that guy's doing a great job," but hey,
You're frozen,
wait
Pat.
a minute, we need new carriages. Bollocks to that. The dividends are going to go. You go. The obvious thing is, oh, and by the way, your bonus for this year is a £2 million bonus plus share dividends of which when you retire will be worth 5 million. You still contest. What you're going to do?
Well, you see, that's the kind of thing that I think Labour should be working from that basis, saying, we're here to serve the people, the majority of people. Rather than
Yeah.
we're here to look after the interests of certain people who are quite rich and who own railways or own water or whatever. If they started with that and maintained that as a central principle, we're here to serve the majority of the people and the welfare of the majority of the people. All sorts of other things would naturally follow from that. It would seem to me that if you're concerned for most people, then water, that's an essential quality or quantity, and therefore you should nationalize it. Simple, simple.
The only thing is, most Starmer knows that if he says tomorrow morning I'm going to nationalise water and nationalise transport like railways, you can bet your life that the billionaire class whose interests are and taking shares and all the rest are going to start having you're talking about your Murdoch presses and your Daily Mails and your Daily Telegraphs saying, "Here we are, the red socialists and all that crap again."
Yeah. I'm part of a reading group, a book club sort of thing, and the book we're reading is called "The Revenge of Power," and the point that was made was in the discussion that really politicians, in some ways, don't call the tune. For example, Liz Truss lasted 44 days or something, not because of the Tories, not because of Labour, but because of big business, the economy.
Absolutely.
They said, you can't do that. And out she went. So really, power rests with those people who are enormously rich and can tell even governments, like a British government, what to do and who should be leading them. Now, they may be right in that, but they have the power to decide whether or not Liz Truss is going to continue as Prime Minister, and they didn't like it, and they kicked her out. It's a sobering thought
when
that,
when you consider the fact that Amazon and Microsoft and Apple
that's
are
exactly it,
richer than
Pat.
Ireland,
You
are
said
way
it.
richer than Ireland,
You
and
said it.
if they threaten to withdraw money, etc., or whatever, they have massive. Sure, what is it said the time Obama went to meet Mark Zuckerberg? Nobody was sure who was the more enthralled. Because it was a big thrill for Obama to meet Mark Zuckerberg. It used to be meeting the president of America was a big deal, but it was all the way around. So, somebody said it struck them as odd that,
But
it was almost like a young guy meeting Kylie Minogue, if you know what I mean.
well, I never thought of it that way.
There's an image for
I
you.
take your point. These people were saying that in this book that I was reading, they said that Amazon, for example, usual thing about monopolies, like Amazon's a huge monopoly, like it sells everybody,
Absolutely.
From movies to, just everything. And they said that the government, American government, the antitrust section of the American government that looks after, sees that there's no gouging by monopolies. So they not, charging an awful price for stuff because they're the only one provided it. They said that's not the case with the likes of Amazon. Amazon actually gives the public very low prices.
Yeah.
But they make their money in other ways. They control, if you like, they control other big companies. Any company that wants to deal, a bookseller, furniture, you name it, they've got to go through Amazon, and they'll have to pay
Dude,
Amazon.
let me tell you, there's a wee personal experience. As you know, I published a book quite recently, and the guy who published it didn't want to put it on Amazon. And I said to him, "Why not?" He said, "Pat, they take 40% profit right away. Even though all they do is send out the book. So if the book costs 20 quid, they're getting 8 quid.
Yeah.
Before and that's it. And then all the other things for all they do for sending out a book. Not
Well, you
unbelievable.
see, that's the tricky part, is that they do deliver a very efficient service. Like I can get something from Amazon if before 1 o'clock today I tell them and pay for it. It'll be there tomorrow morning. I won't have to stir a foot. I mean, it's a brilliant service. By and large, they don't charge too much, but as you say, for services for other companies coming in, or even an individual like yourself, they'll cut you to pieces. And you've no choice, really. There's no alternative to Amazon selling books in that way, that online. Well, there are, but somehow or another they don't seem to count alongside Amazon. Okay, let's move on, Pat, because we'll be on this one for a long time. I spotted a thing that was saying the Irish Times they've come back to this again. Remember they had that report by Fitzgerald and this other guy,
Morgan Russ.
That showed that it would be 20 billion euro for each of 20 years if you had United Ireland. And now they'll come back to this, and in the article they spun that story again, and then they went on to talk about Brendan O'Leary, who had a much more positive spin on things, and in fact was suggesting that there would be maybe benefits, economically speaking, to unity. Frankly, I don't see how it couldn't be benefits. But I sort of thought they were playing, the Irish Times was playing a little bit smart, where they once again give the reasons for not having a united Ireland economically. Again. And then they brought in Brendan O'Leary when he said, now, one of the things they said, and this is one of the obstacles they claim, that if you had a united Ireland and you were somebody living in the north and you had you were working and you had a pension, what would you do then? Who'd pay the pension? Well, I have news for them. I worked in Canada teaching for most of 10 years. I get a pension from Canada. There was no question of that. Any Canadian or anybody who's done work in Canada, and I'm sure the same thing applies to other places, they get their pension in accordance with whatever number of years they've done the work. I worked here for 30 years, and I get my pension from here for the years that I worked. I mean, that's just sort of common sense. And to say that, oh God, they'll stop paying our pensions, all those civil servants won't get pensions, what bloody nonsense. There wouldn't be a chance of that.
Fitzgerald and Morgan seem to suggest that Britain wouldn't be generous and they would stop paying the pensions. But if you're a cop, if you're an REC man, and you'd served your country loyally, if you were a nurse, if you're a teacher, public servant, and you earned, you did your 30-year service and you retired when you're 50, and United Ireland comes when you're 70, and suddenly Britain says, "Oh no, we're not. It's no longer our responsibility." Can you imagine the international opprobrium, or what's that word?
Opprobrium,
they would be opprobrium. They'd be slaughtered for doing that, and no, the reputational damage to Britain would be so unbelievably so. Jude, what was the other thing? There was I saw that they suggested Fitzgerald and Morgan that they wouldn't help, that the Americans wouldn't help, etc., etc. And their case was the worst case scenario that could cost 20 billion. The other thing, Jude, I said to you this point a couple of weeks back. Dude, there's 3 or 4 different systems of education. You're the educationist in this duo. Right? You've got the state school, you've got the Catholics maintained school, or whatever you like to call them, and then you've got the integrated school. 3 different types of schools in Northern Ireland. Surely that could be looked at. There's 2 civil servants services on the island of Ireland. There's 2 police forces, 2 everything. There's got to be some sort of massive savings there. Plus the fact, I would think America, an event of Irish unity, I would presume there'd be considerable help from the Americans and the EU. Plus the fact that the Northern Ireland, the productivity in Northern Ireland is way low. if there was unity and there was foreign direct investment, etc., 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 if we had one tourism board that could, the Wild Atlantic Way, for example, could go on into Northern Ireland, all these different things, they would be okay. They would be pain at the start, but the long term, I keep coming back to this guy Hubner, who was the guy who was the main economist when Germany was unified, and he did a fairly intense dug down into it, and he came up with that. Okay, there would be certain problems at the start, but within I think it was 5 years, he forecast, this is about 15 years ago, a 35 billion pound surplus. Dude, where's his analysis gone? And surely his analysis should stand up as for the same as Fitzgerald and Morganrath. In fact, his was based on real assumptions. Fitzgerald and Morganrath are working on the basis of everything going wrong.
Well, there's more than just those two, Fitzgerald and the guy from University of British Columbia. There's more than them. There's your friend in Derry,
Paul Gosling.
Paul Gosling, and there are other studies that have been done as well, and they do come out as different. I thought the most interesting paragraph in this article today in the Irish Times was where they said at the end, they said, in Germany, when Germany was reunited, there was a lot of people feeling very grumpy about it. And in fact, it cost them. But they paid the cost. They said, we want our country. It's like the old thing, like, damn your concessions, we want our country back. The same thing. Damn your finances, to a certain degree. You want to get the thing as good economically as possible. And I'm sure there are ways in which it would be positives rather than negatives. But regardless of that, what sort of self-respect do we have where we say someone else is going to run the part of our country? And that incidentally, just I'll not spend too long on it, Pat, but that's something sort of disgusts me with Southern politicians. And I'd almost include Sinn Féin in that as well. They just simply don't bring up the question of partition. It's as if it wasn't there. They're all the time talking about this country and we've got to revive this country. And that's why I always pull you up jocularly, I assure you, and tell you it's a state, not a country. But I think it's important to remember things like that. And I just feel sometimes that they have this notion, well, they're up there, that doesn't matter. But as you said one time, I remember, I suppose there was 6 counties in Munster that were ruled by Britain. What sort of complaint would you have then? That there'd be murder. They just wouldn't put up for it. Outrageous. And yet they're letting us sit here for the last 100 years and more. You could feel very bitter.
There's 2 or 3 other things as well. In Northern Ireland, there's look at the infrastructure. Many years ago, myself and my brother were going to America, 1972. And I remember my dad, he was driving us to Dublin. And he says, we're leaving Letterkenny. He says, I can't wait to get into the north. Good roads in the north, etc., to get to Dublin. Now, the worst part of the road, it's a nightmare between sort of Strabane and Tuoma. It's that sort of road. In fact, the better roads now are when you get out south by a mile. So, there's that. There's also, the old 11 plus system in the north. It's been totally, completely, and utterly discriminatory against the poor families. I knew a school teacher friend of mine many years ago in Derry, and he told me that he could get any child through the 11 plus if the parents could send that child to him, for grades. He says, I can guarantee it. He says it's a formula. Once you get the formula in your head, he says it's not you don't know what the social conditions are in Brazil. You don't know but if a plane leaves New York at a certain time and another one's leaves Dublin, what time do they meet over the Atlantic Ocean? That's the sort of question you get asked in 11 plus. So anyway, bottom line of it all, Jude, the whole Northern Ireland situation needs totally reformed. And if it did reform, look at the South, the way it's taken off in those last 30, 40 years. And like they're talking, I think this year, they've revised upward again. There's something like it's 8 to 10 billion, I think, surplus this year again. Now, I'm not saying everything's perfect in the Republic of Ireland, far from it. But Jude, Northern Ireland, if you read some of the figures, is going to be even deeper in debt. How come one part of the island is in
doing well and the other's doing so badly?
Good health, and the other one's going down the pan.
Well, so that's because the northern part is saddled to Britain, and Britain is going down the pan. And of course,
Yeah.
the north of Ireland is the most deprived area of all of the United Kingdom, as they call it. So anyway, let's move on. Eurovision is coming up fairly soon. God help us all. And there was talk about Ireland the south of Ireland not participating because of Israel. And I see now that they're using the phrase art wash, that Israel is keen to art wash its crimes, article by Zoe Lawler. And I think that's a very good point. It starts with a terrible contradiction, though. What is Israel? Why was Israel ever admitted to Eurovision? Israel is not in Europe. Israel is in Asia. So, geez.
No, but see, Jude, here, Jude, there, that's a very good question, because therein lies the whole issue of Israel loves to project itself as a Western style democracy. It likes to, we're not these barbaric Arabs, and we're not this and that. That's what, and you keep people asking, why don't you condemn what's happening in Yemen? Why don't you condemn because we're not actually support what happened in Yemen. We're asked in the Western countries. Britain sees Britain, Europe, and America see Israel as one of us, and they supply them with arms, they supply them with finance, they supply them with diplomatic cover. We're all part of that. We are tied in this, and we can, well, speaking personally, I don't want to be supporting genocide, ethnic cleansing, massacres, attacks on hospitals, refugee centers, the killing of what 37,000 people, the wounding of now of almost 80, the obliteration of Gaza. Now, do you want to be a part of that?
No, most definitely not. I just think it flies in the face of common sense, though. I mean, it's like geographical common sense. Like, I tend to refer in my blogs or anything else to NEI because, well, it annoys people. Some people, I'm pleased to annoy them. But Northeast Ireland is a much better description of the six-county state. Because, I mean, Donegal is the most northerly part. The Malnet is the most northerly part of the entire island. So what's the point in talking about Northern Ireland whenever, in fact, I'm talking about as Ulster, whenever, in fact, they're leaving out 3 counties. The same obtains in terms of Israel. Israel simply isn't in Europe. And the Eurovision, the clue is in the name, Eurovision.
Really, by the way, they're also in the European soccer. The nations. Israel. They played Northern Ireland. They were last year. But sorry for cutting across, but another one is the unbelievable thing. I've been in America and I've been in Australia, and somebody asked me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "From Donegal." Do you ever know the sort of mental gymnastics you have to go with? Look, by the way, yeah, it's the most northerly part of Ireland, but it's not Northern Ireland. And they're going, "What?" But I'm deadly serious. I'm going, Jesus, this is, I'm not taking a piss. Look, I am from Donegal. So you're telling me you live in the most northerly part of Northern Ireland, of the north of Ireland, but you're not in Northern Ireland. And you go, yeah. So try explain that one, by the way.
Daft, I called. I've just lost you for a second, Pat. Hold on. Anyway, aye. Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, would you be in favor of your southern state participating in Eurovision this year?
Dude, I would be out waving a flag if they withdrew from it. Absolutely. Dude, and I don't understand how anybody in Ireland can support this, and I don't understand how our government or RT or anybody else, by participating in this with Israel, we are complicit in basically saying what's happening right now in Gaza is acceptable, and Jude, it is not acceptable.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Jude, there are many good Jewish people who really object to what's happening, and they know that what Netanyahu and his right-wing thugs are doing is going to leave them with a sort of a problem for generations to come, and so on. So it's not just the Irish people. Like, when you see Bernie Sanders, just to reference him, he's an American Jew, and last week he launched an unbelievably articulate attack on Israel. There are no other ways. Netanyahu said the college students' protests were anti-Semitism. Bernie Sanders came back and says it's not anti-Semitism to protest about the deaths of 37,000 people. It's not anti-Semitism to protest against the starvation of 2.2 million people. And he made the point that I'm basically after making. He made them so that there's plenty of people in the Jewish community. Unfortunately, the government of Israel is not like a lot of good Jews. It's a very right-wing, nasty, fascist type organization.
Yeah, well, I can see at the same time how Jewish people would have a soft spot in their heart for it. And, I'm sure if I was a Jew, I would also have a soft spot in my heart. But I hope to God I would be using my brain and looking and seeing what's happening in my name or in the name of people like me and, raising the bloody roof. But Joe Biden apparently has decided maybe the best thing to do is to sort of lean a little bit towards the right and towards Israel.
Absolutely.
He said, I support peaceful protest, but he knows damn well that these things soon descend on campuses or wherever. If he looks back to 68, he'll know that, they end in what gets publicity. Let's face it. We know this was the same thing with the civil rights here. What gets publicity is when there's violence. If it bleeds, it leads. I'm sure you use that.
No, by the way, Jude, there was a girl on this morning. I think she's the Irish Times correspondent in America. I can't remember her name. She was on RT this morning. And she says, the protests at UCLA.
Yeah.
She said, it was portrayed as clashes between pro-Palestinians and pro-Israelis.
Yes.
I think she suggested it was not. She says people arrived, and she says, I don't think they were. I think they were right-wing thugs. She's arrived with sticks. They arrived with batons. They arrived with pepper sprays. And she says they were much older. She said, I don't think they were students. So, and she said the police shouldn't watch them. So I wonder, the old Trump types.
Yeah.
Wait, Jude, I keep mentioning.
Well worth mentioning, Pat, because it ties into the another topic we probably should talk about, and that is the migration of immigrants from the north down to the south. I saw an article which suggested that of all this texting that went on at the time. I'm not sure whether it was at the time of that youngster or those people were stabbed outside Kalashnikov, or whether it's talking about the more recent developments and clashes with the guards. But they're saying that if you look at the texts that have been sent, it's something like 60, 70, maybe 80% of them come from other countries, like America and Australia and other places like that. So we're really being played by a right-wing a right-wing conspiracy that is, jumping onto this bandwagon where they think they can push things to further extreme. My God, we should stand up to that, and all journalists should make us know that very quickly. Because it's easy to say, oh, God, look at the number of people who really don't want these people here. Oh, what will we do? The sky is falling. Maybe it's not that.
That absolute American nut job, Alex Jones, apparently he's been stirring up about what's happening in Ireland and all the rest of it. Jude, I loved it, by the way. But I think our friend, the Minister for Justice, Helen McEntee, said last week, or was it earlier this week, about the fact that most of the people coming in through Northern Ireland from the Republic now presenting themselves. I think we discussed it on Monday.
Yeah.
We're coming in through Northern Ireland. And then Michael Martin sort of reiterated that. By the way, Jude, they have zero statistics on it. Let's move on a wee bit. And of course, with the local elections coming up, Rishi Sunak jumped on a Tory. There's proof that our Rwanda plan is working. These people are shipping themselves or going to Ireland instead. Right. And it looks so good. Now, Jude, last Wednesday, and keep in mind, not one Rwanda fight has taken place. It might never take place. On Wednesday, the biggest number of migrants crossing the channel was reached, 714 people on one day.
Yeah.
So, but there's a whole spat between Dublin and London about the Rwanda plan for election purposes. So, Jude, I would love to know is, I think Irish politicians should not, like, did we get into a whole row with London about something that actually suited the Tory party? Jude, there's absolutely no proof how many are coming in through the north. None.
Well, we don't. You're right. There is a great vagueness in that, and Helen McEntee really overstepped when she said 80%, because that was based on very flimsy sort of evidence.
Very
On the other
flimsy
hand,
statistics.
Pat, it is a difficulty, and you can see
Yeah.
how some of the people in Britain would be rubbing their hands, because we really, the South and the North would have pushed for a no border on Ireland, on the land, no
Yeah.
land border, like keep it at the ports
Yeah.
and so on. But if you've got people migrating from the north to the south, and sort of fading into the background of the people, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's is a problem. Have you any idea how
Yeah.
that could be solved? Now, I'm not saying they're big numbers, but I would have thought that if I was an immigrant and I couldn't get my papers straight, that I was allowed in the UK, but the EU wasn't going to wash for me, I think I would be tempted to go south myself.
Yeah. The Thomas got into a row yesterday with Gary Gannon. He's a Green, he's a left-wing TD anyway.
Yeah.
And he says, "Look, stop buying the Daily Telegraph line and all the rest of it."
Mm.
Like they're sort of they were spinning at the Daily Mail, and this is proof of how the Tory party is the only party can sort of asylum seekers and so on.
Mm.
But I mean, bottom line, as Michael Martin says, did you see any cops at the border? No Gardaí have been rushed to the border. There's what it seems to be, the Irish government hard facts about how many people coming through. By the way, a lot of the charities in the south said that's bollocks. A lot of people when they get here only they don't want to say where they come from when they arrive at an airport or whatever. They only present themselves at the International Protection Office and then say they come in through Northern Ireland. So it needs a whole lot of oversight before they can say what's happening. But anyway, bottom line of it all, Jude, is I think what they're suggesting is the Rwanda plan is making very little difference to Ireland, and it's no success story for the Tories either. When you consider the fact here's this sort of deterrent, and the biggest number ever was 714 in one day yesterday, Wednesday.
Yeah. Well, you see, this Rwanda thing has got it plays to the lowest common denominator.
Absolutely.
The nastiest part. And I suppose we all have something nasty in us. And the right wing in Britain loves that. Send these bloody foreigners,
like red meat,
put them on a plane and send them back to Africa or wherever. I mean, maybe they're not from Africa, but it's all the same. They're not the same as us. Anyway, I have one final question, Pat, because we're just about out of time, so you're going to have to speak very quickly. There's an article, I think, today on the funding of parties. Do you know how parties are funded in the South? It takes money to put up posters and to get out and so on.
A lot of it was voluntary. It used to be donations, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, as far as I know, it's donations still, and it's certainly donations in Britain. So if I can get in well with the big companies and sort of maybe a quiet word in their ear, I'll back you, they'll give me money. That's ridiculous. There should be a law saying the only money you can get is from the members of your party, people who are signed up members. At least have an even playing field. As things stand, it's ridiculous. Any jokes, Pat?
It's not on that note.
Okay, go back to your gloomy cavern again. Okay, Pat.